Hey, it's Dave Brown here, host of Now with Dave Brown on AMI. Check out this latest highlight from the show. Welcome back. It's Now with Dave Brown on AMI-TV. The song you're hearing right now is the latest single by artist and musician Christa Couture. The song is called Summer is Hot with My Little Trans Lover. It made its debut last month in time for Pride season. Here to chat a little bit more about the single is Christa herself, but before Christa comes in, let's let the song roll for just another moment here.
Summer is hot with my little trans lover. We tangle in sheets and stick to each other. Their voice makes me feel like I've had too much wine. Summer's a very good time.
The song is pretty enjoyable. It almost seems unreasonable to start fading it down, but Christa Couture is on the line, so let's talk to Christa about making the music, and then on the way out, we'll play a little bit more of the song. Hey, good morning, Christa.
Good morning.
Christa, there is some real fun playfulness. It sounds like a summer single for sure. What prompted you to write the song?
I mean, the song just came up between my partner and I initially. They had texted me calling themselves my little trans lover one day, and it made me laugh. I mean, they are trans, but it was just a cute little turn of phrase. And I sat down at the piano and played kind of half of that song and texted it back to them. And so it was just kind of early in our relationship. It was just a sweet little flirtatious moment. And then they were turning 50 and I wanted to make them something special. And so I finished the song, I recorded it with some pals and gave it to my partner as a gift. That was the initial intention, but then decided I wanted to share it with the world.
There have been about 1 million love songs, probably even more. That's an understatement. Probably since music has been created, there's been songs about love. But sometimes, in fact, oftentimes, diversity is not reflected in those love songs. Why do you think that is?
Why is that? I mean, it's interesting coming from my own identities and locations as like a queer, Indigenous, disabled person. There are so many ways I don't see myself represented in pop culture and in mainstream culture. And my partner, Allie, they're the first non-binary and trans person I've dated. And I have non-binary friends and trans friends, and so I was kind of aware of that lack, but falling in love with a non-binary person meant it really came to the forefront of like, hey, there's nothing about us. There's no love song about you and me and about how I feel, and all the love songs are he or she or you. And you know, when you're first falling in love, you feel like every pop song is about you. It all rings so true, but I realized there wasn't much that I could find that had they them pronouns. And I'm sure it exists, and I'm sure that many love songs we've heard that say he and she are probably about a non-binary person, or you know, and we just don't know it. I mean, I think we're at a point where that's starting to shift, and I wanted to share this song to be part of that shift so that, you know, there's more out there. I think we're starting to hear more from, I mean, I'm a cis person, I'm an ally, but we're starting to hear more from trans non-binary artists themselves. And so hopefully it starts to change. But why is that? Why is there a lack of representation? That's a hard question. Hey, like, why are so many of us excluded for so long, you know? But I think once you start to notice that exclusion is when you can make a change.
And it's something that you've actually had to confront since the release of this song. A few of the major music platforms did hit your song with either, quote, explicit lyrics or sensitive content. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on these major music platforms putting these labels on music that's meant to be inclusive?
Yeah, that really surprised me. So when you release a song, you are required to identify if there's explicit lyrics. And the definition of that is either explicit sexual content, explicit violent content, or swear words, right? And to me, there's none of that in this song. It's a pretty sweet, there's maybe like innuendo at best. Like it's a little suggestive.
It's pretty safe. It's in the grand scheme of a lot of the music that I listen to, it's pretty safe.
Right. And in the grand scheme of like, even just like boy band songs that are a lot more explicit than this. And so I started to have conversations online about why is this being flagged? And I'm pretty clear that it's being flagged because of anti-trans ideas. And so the fact that it has not just trans in the title and in the lyrics, but trans lover, and people started saying, well, that's clearly sexual. And I was like, the word trans it's an adjective. It has to do with gender. It's not sexual.
Mm-hmm.
and lover, even that, it's a sweet word. But people, whatever algorithm flags lyrics on Spotify or Apple Music, and of course I can't like talk to someone at Apple Music about why this happened. There's no person.
Wait,
but,
you don't have a personal line to Tim Cook to address these issues?
I wish, right? But I didn't know that was going to happen. And even on Instagram, the links to the song get flagged as this content may not be appropriate for all audiences. And it was really hard to see that because it's just a sweet song. And it's just a sweet song about falling in love, which, as you said, there are bajillion ubiquitous songs about that exact thing. And the only thing that makes the song different is that it's using the word trans and using they, them pronouns. And so that's why it gets flagged, but it's really unfortunate that it does. And so, on the piece of this representation, it's not just like representation matters and we need to be inclusive. There's also really larger political, cultural ideas attached to this. We live in a time of rising anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ2S plus hate. And so when a sweet little song with the word trans gets flagged as explicit and people get their backs up about it, that's a pretty small example of what's happening around us.
Yeah, it's that perpetual balancing act that's existing in the digital space. That there's been a lot of democratization, which has platformed a lot of people, but now there are so many tools that people can weaponize to actually fight against progress and fight against inclusion. It must be very difficult for you as someone, even who you thought you were just writing a little love song, all of a sudden you find yourself like embroiled in the culture war. I'm not saying that you're stoking the culture war, but the culture war will come find you.
The culture will come find you. I mean, I always knew once we were making it public, and certainly my partner, knows better than I, this is their lived experience as a non-binary person, that by being public, people are going to take issue with it because people are so ignorant and at best ignorant and hopefully open to education and at worst hateful. And so I knew that there would be people who didn't like it or who weren't going to get it. And I hoped that in hearing it, it might help that this song, sure, it's just a love song, I'm doing air quotes, but because of the words trans and non-binary, there are people out there that this is still new to, and maybe this is a way that it opens up some paths for them. And it's one way that I can contribute to that conversation or that change. But it's exactly on social media in sharing the song, there's lots of supportive comments, lots of open-hearted comments. It's okay if people don't know or, want to learn. That's great. But then it meant that coming into the comments were also people who were using the comment section to share their hateful ideas. And so I ended up closing the comments on one of my posts, which is really unfortunate because it sort of ends the conversation, which was not my intention. But at the same time, I'm not going to share a space for people to be hateful. Yeah,
that's ultimately become the deep conflict inside the digital space. But Christa, let's use the last two questions to focus on the positive, because you did mention you got some like really nice feedback on this. How does it feel to know that your music is so directly impacting people in a positive way?
It's the best feeling in the world. I mean, as I mentioned, when I was falling in love with my partner, I realized, there was no love songs that have they them. There was no love songs, about what I was feeling. And so in sharing the song, other people have said, oh, I feel seen. Either they're a trans or non-binary person who has now a love song about them, another love song about them, or they're a person like me who loves a non-binary person. And so those conversations have been really exciting because we all want to be seen, whatever our thing is, wherever our identity lives, we want to be seen. We want our experiences to be recognized. And so having that connection with people, it's the best feeling, and it's a mutual feeling. I get to feel seen in, in my relationship and in my feelings and in my music and my art. And then there's people around me. Some of the best comments were from parents of trans or non-binary kids who are excited that they're, when their kids are older and falling in love, they know there's going to be a song that speaks to their experience. And so all of that felt really, really good. And I was really glad to put it out there for that reason.
And Christa, one last question in regards to the positive side of things. What's going on with the music more broadly? Like shows, album releases, single releases? What's cracking? What's going on?
What's going on? I mean, these days, I'm not making a lot of music. I published a book. I produced a short series of animated films. I've been making other kinds of art. So that was another thing about releasing this single. It was like, hey, remember I have 7 albums and I used to make music all the time. And so I think, there might be other singles or music down the road. It's something now that I do mostly for the joy of it. And putting the song out there was for the joy of it and for people to see and hear they, thems, and put those pronouns in your ears. And if you're not used to it, sing along. It'll help.
So Christa, in regards to Summer's Hot with My Little Trans Lover, that can be found on YouTube and other major music platforms. But what about following along with your other work? You mentioned you've got a whole bunch of stuff going. In fact, I think the last time you were on the show, we were talking about some of the other art you were doing. So where should people follow along with the work that you're doing?
The best way to keep up with me is on Instagram if you're there at Christa Couture, otherwise ChristaCouture.com.
I just rejoined Instagram over the weekend.
Yeah,
because,
welcome back.
Well, a friend needed a favor. She wanted to win a Barbie dream house with the film release this week, and she needed someone to boost her post. So I swooped into the Insta world ever so briefly to lend her a hand.
As good a reason as any.
Yeah, exactly. Christa, thank you for this. All the best to you.
Thanks, you too.
That is artist and musician Christa Couture. Christa's song, Summer's Hot with My Little Trans Lover, can be found on YouTube and is available to stream and download on various platforms. On the way out to break, let's listen to a little bit more of the music. And after the break, John Lepke stops by for a sports chat. This is Now with Dave Brown on AMI-TV. Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI-TV or download the podcasts wherever you listen. Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI-TV or download the podcasts wherever you listen.